Perfect. All right, so today we're just going to talk a little bit about smart money management. And so this hopefully will be great information, but also, just some basic stuff that we all need to know. And I know we have a freshman in the room. I don't know who else will be able to watch the video, but good information. So you might want to take a few notes or at least have it to be able to refer back to later once it's been completed. So these are some things we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about bank accounts and payment methods, credit card basics, managing your money, income versus expenses, that's a big one, and needs versus wants. Always love to be sure we are reminded about that. Creating a budget, then we'll wrap up with some helpful tips. So bank accounts and payment methods. And I know last week Sergio did talk a little bit about some basic information with this. I know he talked about checks and just some good stuff, but we're going to go over a little bit more about this too, even if it's just a good review. So let's talk about bank accounts. Hopefully you guys already have a savings account and a checking account, or either or, hopefully both. But those are the two main types of accounts that we all use, a checking account and a savings account. But there is a little bit different in what they are and how they act. So what is a checking account? So a checking account is an account, it's a type of bank account that keeps your money safe and gives you easy access to your money through a deposit, which is putting money into your account, or a withdrawal of transactions is when we take our money out or we use our money. And a savings account is an account at a bank, and it lets us store our money securely. Well, typically it earns a little interest, which means it actually can make a little money there. And it keeps your money safe, which is very important, and it's also backed in case something would happen, up to $250,000. Why should you read the fine print? That's vitally important, because you want to know that to keep your money and not to have to pay extra fees for things, you kind of need to know what the requirements are at your bank. Some of those things might be, do I have to maintain a certain amount in my account, or will I get charged a fee for that? Are there a number of swipes I can do, maybe on my debit card, or how much money can I take out per day, or how many transactions per month, or is there a fee associated with that? So anything that's real detailed about your checking or savings account that you need to know about so that you don't have to pay extra fees or pay fees at all. That's so important. So know your bank and what they require. And this may sound a little silly, but I actually have seen this at my previous job. I worked at a credit union, and the actual check that Sergio talked about last time about how to fill out a check, and maybe that's kind of old school, but sometimes we might still have to do that. Just because you may have a checkbook or check does not mean that you actually have money in your account. That may sound kind of silly, but just because you have a check doesn't mean you can write it for any amount that you want. That's how we can have like a paper form of money, but you can't write checks if you don't have money in your account. Those are called hot checks, and you could get in big trouble or go to jail for that. Knowing your balance is certainly important, and keeping track of your account balance so you don't have what we call overdraft, which means you take out more money than you have in the bank. And if you do that, then they have these fees attached to that. And it means you didn't have enough money, and they will charge you for those. And typically it's around $35 for every deduction or every time you use it and you didn't have money in your account. So that can definitely add up. I've seen that before too, when people were, maybe they had set up for an auto draft taken out of their account. Maybe they used their debit card a couple of times that day and didn't realize that they didn't have money in their account, or it had gone below. And every time you do that and there's no money, you get charged in addition at least a $35 fee possibly, if you don't have something in place that can help you with that. So please be aware of that. Guys, this is very informal as well, so the main purpose of this is to be able to answer questions and help you understand and learn about some basics. So if you have questions along the way, please interrupt me or let me know, or we can ask questions at the very end. So just let me know. So there are three different things we need to talk about here. So we have a debit card, a credit card and a prepaid card. And what's the difference in that? Well, first of all, some of us still have actual cash. And cash is awesome because you can use that for everyday purchases, but there are times when, in some cases, if you're going maybe to, let's just say there's an NFL game you're going to, some of these stadiums don't even allow cash anymore. And so it's important to have some sort of plastic available that you can use. So, you know, cash is best, but sometimes we do, in order to be able to build our credit, we do need a debit card, well, a credit card to be able to build good credit. So let's talk about these for just a minute. Can anybody tell me where would your money come from if you were using a debit card? If you have a debit card and you swipe it and you use it to pay for something, where is that money going to come from? Stephanie, you may have to help us out.
Your checking account?
Yeah, so your debit account, your debit card is actually coming from the money that you already have. It's coming from your checking account. And so you don't get charged extra for that, so that's important to know. In order to use a debit card, you typically have to have a PIN number. So if you're using it at the grocery store and you swipe your debit card, they may require certain PIN numbers, or if you're going and you want to take money out of your checking account and you're like an ATM, you have to use a PIN number to be able to confirm that transaction for security purposes. So that's important. Don't just tell everybody your PIN number, because that would be detrimental for you. Somebody could use it, or just don't share that information. It's private for you, and you certainly don't want identity theft or people getting into your information. That is yours. And then when we come back down to the credit card, obviously, the main word, and that is what?
Credit.
Credit. Yeah, so credit means that I don't necessarily have the money in hand, so I'm going to put it on this credit card, but it means either maybe I do have money in my account, but I want to build up some credit. I want to be able to make my credit good. Or some people like to use credit cards because of these little reward systems that they have in place, and they earn points, and it's helpful because you might get cash back to help pay on your balance, or you can earn rewards for hotel rooms, or you tell me if you know of some specific things. Anybody in your room there have a specific thing that they use their credit card for rewards?
You do? You use it for miles?
Just points?
Got miles?
Points? Miles, points?
Yes, absolutely. But we do have to be careful with that, because we don't want to add up money on our account if we can't pay for it, just because we're trying to get these points and these rewards. And so they know how to play that game. If it wasn't advantageous for the company, they wouldn't be doing it. So they know enough people are probably not paying off their balance. And so that's why they're offering these things. So be careful. They know what they're doing. So let's just, for our credit card, just for a few minutes. The credit card is money that is lent to you from the company, and you do have to pay it back with interest. A credit allows you to buy something now that you can pay for later, only if there is available funds, meaning that you haven't charged it up to your limit. So for college students, possibly, you may be able to get a credit card in your name, or if you're not old enough, maybe as under your parents. But let's just say that maybe the limit for you, because of your age and not having a large credit already, they may have a limit for maybe only $500 for you, which as a college student, that's great. You don't need $5,000 on a credit card, because that could get you into a lot of trouble if you don't have self-control. Some of them may be just $1,000, and that's helpful too. But whatever you put on your credit card, you do have to pay back. They're not just going to wipe it out, and with interest. So be sure that even though you may get a monthly statement, which is typically how that works, they may say, oh, the minimum payment is, let's just say $20, but you may have $200 that you charged this past month. Just know that just because it's a minimum balance, that's all you have to pay, but you're getting charged interest on everything, and the goal is to be able to pay it off. So a good rule of thumb is don't put something on your credit card unless you can pay it off at the end of the month. You might have any questions about that?
No.
one thing that's different about a debit card and a credit card is that a credit card, like we mentioned, can help you build your credit score, and it can help build it in a positive way instead of hurting it. So that's a good, easy way to be able to build credit if you don't have other ways, maybe that, if you don't have a vehicle, a car note, or other ways, a credit card is helpful. Even if you just get a small one, maybe like for gas, a gas card, and you know you gotta get gas, just put it on there instead of out of your checking account, and that way you can build up your credit that way. Anybody have a credit card? That would be a good question, first of all. Do any of you have a credit card?
Yes.
Yes. Do you find that you pay it off every month, or is it something you need to work on?
Yes.
We pay it off every month.
I know.
Yes, we
All right,
do.
so if you have to tell me what they said.
We pay it off every month.
Yay, good job. Sounds like you've got some good students. Perfect. And then the last option is a prepaid card. And that's, that may be something that you may not use as much as the others. I don't typically use a prepaid card, but sometimes you may have them because you've received them maybe as a gift. Maybe you received from your parents at Christmas. Maybe they just gave you a Visa card with X amount of dollars on it. So this is important. Let's talk about this for just a minute. Prepaid cards are very different from credit cards, and it can be confusing because both types of cards may have a card network logo attached to it. So whether it's like a Visa credit card, a MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and so that may look like the same, but they're definitely not. Some things to know about a prepaid card is that it's reloadable, and it allows you to add more money onto the card the card at any time. And so it doesn't actually have to be you. Maybe your parents want to add that money to you to help you in paying for some of your expenses during college for your month, that month. There are two types of prepaid cards. I actually didn't know there was a real term for this. This is kind of neat. So there's an open loop prepaid card, and there's a closed loop prepaid card. And an open loop prepaid card is a card that has that network logo, like that Visa, the MasterCard, and all of those. These cards can be used at any location that accepts that type of card. And those prepaid cards are your open loop cards. So that would be like the ones we were mentioning, like the Visa and some of those that are already loaded. But some of those may also include like a payroll card. Does anybody have a job where they get paid on a card instead of like a check or deposit in their account?
No.
No? Okay, nobody has that? I haven't seen that. For some folks, they do have that, so it's a little bit different, but that is another way that some companies use to pay their employees. But then, this is neat, the closed loop prepaid card, that's a little bit different, and that would be, I'm sure we all have received gift cards. You can buy gift cards anywhere and everywhere, whether it be at, Old Navy or Starbucks or any of those. When you're done, they chunk it. It's not necessarily a reloadable card. So just be careful. Some of them may have some fees associated with them, like prepaid cards. Sometimes, like for instance, my dad at Christmas loves to give us a credit card or a debit card. Well, my dad probably doesn't realize that we actually have to pay the fee on the card to be able to use it. So you don't get the full amount because you've got to pay a service charge to be able to use it. So just be aware of that. Sometimes, if you need something, it's best just get your debit card and go do, cash back instead of doing what they call a cash advance. You could actually go and get cash by using your credit card if you have money available. Does anybody ever do that? They do a cash advance on their credit card, or do you do cash back on your debit card? Or do you just use cash? No comment on that one?
Cash.
He's a cash person. Perfect. Very, very good. Well, just be careful. There are some fees associated with cards, as we talked about. So just be aware of what your card is and what your bank has for that specific card. Credit card basics. Let's talk about this for just a little bit. It's important to know the details of the credit card, and is there an annual fee? So this is very important. Some people they don't mind paying an annual fee. So an annual fee is once a year. They may have to pay $95 to be able to have the credit card and use it. I personally do not want to pay an annual fee to be able to use a credit card to have some purchases. And there are some that don't have any. There are some that, but when they charge you an annual fee, they may have some better perks, or some of their reward programs may be better, or maybe you have a higher limit. But just be aware that some of them do have an annual fee. But if you don't want it, you can avoid that with a different type of card. And then also, what's so important with a credit card is if you're using a credit card and you can't pay it all back the next month or whenever your bill comes in, they're going to charge you interest. And so an annual percentage rate. What is that APR going to be, and how much is it going to be extra that I'm having to pay for the items that I purchased? And so if your APR is relatively high, anybody have an idea what maybe a high interest rate would be on a credit card?
25%.
I would say maybe like the high teens and in the 20s, low 20s, that's really, really high. Some may be higher. But sometimes they start out with a low or a zero interest rate, maybe for 6 months. But then it changes over after those 6 months, and then it may be that higher rate, or there may be a variable interest rate. So just know what you've gotten yourself into with your credit card, and if it is a high interest rate, when you can't pay everything off, they're going to charge you. So let's just say you bought, $100 worth of things last time on your credit card, and you didn't pay it all off. Maybe you only could afford the minimum balance. Well, they're going to charge you the interest on that based upon what your total is, how much it is. And so you may be paying more in the interest than what your minimum payment may be. So that's not a good thing. So please be wise. Use your credit card, I would say, primarily for your needs, what the essentials, and only what you can pay off. If you don't have any comments, you're welcome to let us know. Okay, moving on. Here are some common mistakes that we certainly need to avoid in our credit card and being owners of a credit card. Overspending. Sometimes we have lots of emergencies and we have to be very careful, or we will end up with a lot of debt. So overspending, impulse spending is a big issue, and some people will charge something that they don't necessarily need. I have even heard of a friend of mine, pets can sometimes become expensive, and maybe they didn't have money available in their emergency fund, and so they have to put a vet bill on their credit card, and that adds up. That's water. So be careful with that. Another thing that's number 2 is spending just to earn the reward points. Be careful with that. It can get you in trouble. It's great to have the points, to have a free hotel night or a free flight, but just be careful to not be the purpose of what they're doing that for, and to be able, they're making money off of you if you're not careful. We talked about this one. Number 3, making only the minimum payment. If you only are making the minimum payment, you're not necessarily ever going to get ahead. That kind of goes along with student loans too. You're only making the minimum. You're not going to get ahead and get it paid off. This is a big one. Not paying your bill on time. This is very detrimental, and this is all part of what your credit score, and which we're going to talk about in a minute. That is something they look at. So if you do not pay your bill on time, that can definitely be a detriment to you. So number 5, using convenience checks or other cash advance features. We just talked about that. If you need some cash, but you're not sure how to do that, and you're like, oh, I could probably get some off of my credit card, well, there's going to be a fee associated with that, typically. So just be aware of that. Know your credit card. Just as we've kind of touched on already, what are the details about it, the fine print, and that's so important to know. And if you don't, do a little research. Pull out your actual account or look it up, your e-statement, and see how much is it. Are you being charged extra on things? And try to avoid that at all costs. Credit cards are not using your own money. You're using the credit card issuer's money, and so they want it back for sure. you can charge it to the set limit that they have put for you, and if you don't pay off your entire credit balance when the bill is due, you'll be charged that interest. Remember that the larger amount that you charge, you're gonna need to pay more, and that interest is gonna accrue a lot more too. A credit card, though, can be one of the fastest ways to build credit. We've already mentioned that, and if you're trying to build up or improve your credit, consider a credit card, but with a small limit, and just start over time building up your credit in the ways that you can do that. And we're gonna talk about that too coming up. Payment history is about 35% of your credit score. Your payment history. That's one of the big factors in it too. So that's one way that you can help or hurt your credit score. And we'll talk about why that's important too. So be sure, pay things on time. Don't let them get out of control. If you have to, cut it up. Cut it up, pay it off, and don't allow yourself another credit card until you can get some help to manage it wisely. Some folks say, debt-free is the way for me, and I'm working on that. I do pay my credit cards off, but, I still have a mortgage, and I am still paying on my vehicle. But if you can handle that, and it's at a low rate, then, sometimes we do have to have some sort of debt when it's the big purchase items, but be careful with the credit card. Know the fine print. Any questions along the way?
No.
Okay, we're moving on to FICO scores. FICO scores are important because they are used by 90% of the top lenders in the U.S. And they look at that when you may be applying to get a loan for what? What in the world would maybe a college student or someone, a young adult, may need to purchase? Anybody give me some examples of what you might need to purchase, or maybe even once you graduate, this may be one of your first big purchases in your name? Anybody have any idea? You can share in the chat, or you can just let them know.
Car, apartment lease, apartment,
What's something that you might need to purchase one day as a young adult?
car,
Yes, ma'am. Somebody might need a car. Maybe you have a vehicle that your parents have allowed you to use, but it's kind of on its last legs just getting you to college. And once you get your first job and you need something reliable, then you need to apply for a loan to take out to purchase a car. Well, your FICO score is what they're going to look at to determine what that interest rate might be for your car loan, how long maybe it can go, like how many months you can go or years for that loan. So you certainly don't want a bad or low FICO score when they are taking a look at your credit. So I kind of gave an answer away. So is it best to have a higher or a lower credit score?
higher.
Absolutely. You'll see kind of in yellow the range. So the lower would be the 300 end of things, but the highest would be 850. So by doing some of the things that we've talked about, building your credit, paying on time, and we'll go through some of the other things too, we want to build up a credit score that is higher. Anybody have any idea what the average credit score in 2022 was?
600?
Anybody have a guess?
600?
800?
No, 6.
No.
6.
600?
Yeah.
Well, 600 actually is a little too low. 800 is a little too high. So get a little bit in the middle of that. What do you think?
680.
650. It's like bingo.
Well, y'all are a little bit lower. So the
720?
average FICO score for 2022 was 716.
Nice.
So that's pretty good.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So here's something maybe, what do you think, let's just say if you're in college and you are using your federal dollars to pay for school, so you have like, maybe you've got a Pell Grant and you have your loans through the federal government because they don't require credit for a student to have a loan, but maybe that wasn't enough, and so you needed to apply for a private loan, so that's like Sally Mae. Any idea how much, the starting, FICO score is to, possibly qualify for a private student loan? But this is just for Sally Mae, there are other ones out there too. Anybody have an idea for that? It would not be 300, that's really bad.
650?
You're so close, 640. Very good. So that's kind of the starting point for being considered for a student loan. Now, obviously, the higher it would be, I would guess like a 640. That's not necessarily going to give you the greatest interest rate, but it still could possibly get you a student loan. But the higher the credit, the higher the FICO, the better type of loan and interest rate that you can get. Awesome, good job. How do I know what my credit score is? Everything is gone through one of these, if not all three of these credit bureaus. These are the three, the main ones: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So if you are looking for a loan, let's just say even for a car, they're going to run your credit report, take a look at it, and also determine what your credit score is. They're not necessarily going to give you your credit score through the report. That's one thing that if you're not sure about when you're making your payment through Sally Mae, if you have a loan, we do provide that for students, so that's really neat to be able to find that. But you can pull your credit report for free once a year. You can do that by going to annualcreditreport.com, and so you can get that for free once a year. And you're like, well, I don't really know if that's important. Why do I need to know that? Well, it's important because you need to make sure people are not taking advantage of you. You have any identity theft. It lists lots of different things. It lists your jobs that you've had, maybe how long you've been there. Lots of things that are important to employers as maybe you're applying for a new job or for a loan or any of the things that maybe we kind of talked about: car, house, any of those things. So remember, you can get it once a year for free. Important to kind of take a look at and see. Okay, so far, any questions? Y'all doing okay? Okay, we're going to move on. So, what was that we were just talking about? Managing your money. That's the next one we're going to go to, managing your money. So, this is kind of where we need to talk about budget. Does anybody use a budget for yourself, whether it's something you write down, just kind of in your head, or does anybody use a budget?
Yes.
No? Yes?
Yes.
There was a yes in the room. Wonderful. That is important because it helps us be able to identify how much we have and how much has to go out or goes out, may not have to go out, and then what's left and how are we doing. And so a budget is really, really important to be able to manage and control our expenses and our income. So you'll see over on the left-hand side what are some ways that we earn money, and then also some of the expenses. So we're going to take a look at a little bit of this. See if I've got another important note with that. Keeping track of our spending is important. Does anybody have an example of how you keep up with your budget? Can you tell us some of the ways that you do it? Someone mentioned they do have a budget. What do you do? Do you literally write it down, or do you have an app or a program online that you use?
I write it down.
You write it down. Okay, perfect. That is very helpful. Whether it's a notebook or an Excel spreadsheet, it's really helpful. It helps you see where it's coming in and it's going out. Don't forget also to set financial goals. So as we are working through some of this, setting little goals and long-term goals is important. And also, then we have to make adjustments to our budget. So we may have not set it just right. We had some things change. And so making adjustments is important. So here's just an example. Let's just talk about a budget. Determining your income while you're in school. Because it's going to be very different while you're in school. And every student is different because they may be different age, of course, or different responsibilities, different jobs. So let's think about it in terms of this. on this slide right here are some ways that maybe the student has received finances to help them pay for college. So with financial aid, that's a big part of helping pay for college is the financial aid that we get. A campus work-study job, well, you have to work to get the money, so, maybe you are doing that, but you might want to take into account how much on average you may be earning each month for that. An off-campus job, and then also just through your parents that may be helping you or your family. And then what about our expenses? This was important because I think this is our one-time expenses. So not something we have all the time or something to think about every month, but what are our expenses that we have in school? So of course our books and may have to have like an online code for one of your classes, your supplies, and if you have to purchase a computer, or there may be a program you have to purchase for one of your classes to use. So those are one-time expenses. But then here we go with our monthly expenses. What would be an important one, or what is one of your monthly expenses that you would have to include on your budget?
Your rent.
Anybody?
Your rent.
Rent. Yes, your rent. Anybody else? I think this one at the top, cell phone. These days, I don't know many people who could go without a cell phone. Maybe your parents are helping pay for that bill, but if it's on you, that's important. Of course, internet and other things too. But those are just some examples. I think the one at the bottom is very important. Emergency savings. It doesn't necessarily have to be huge, but what are you going to do if you have a flat tire? How are you going to pay for that? If you haven't set aside a little bit of money for that, then it's going to be real quick to resort to that credit card. And if you haven't budgeted for extra things, then you may not be able to pay it off that next month, and you're going to have the interest added to that. So even if you can save $25 a month, $50 a month into, you can even break down your savings account into different little sub-funds that you don't touch it unless it is an emergency. So it's very important to have an emergency fund. Anybody have an emergency fund? Or is that just a dream because we're college students? How can we afford an emergency fund? I understand that's hard. So if we total it all up and we see, here we go, 5,800, because they just kind of multiplied by the number of months per term, thinking of students. And there's a problem. Anybody see the problem?
You're negative.
It's in the negative. It's red. Nothing. Oh, I like red. Red's a good color. Well, no, that's not good. Red is bad. You think about Black Friday, and people are wanting to make money. That's hard to remember. Black Friday, you want that to be black, not red. They are in the hole. They have went over how much they are getting in versus what's going out. And so that's where we certainly need to think about what's the essentials, what are the essentials versus what are my expenses that maybe I need to make some adjustments on. So needs versus wants. Let's talk about that for just a minute. We talked a little bit about rent, some other things that are essential for us to be able to live from month to month. But what are some of these things that are wants that maybe need to be adjusted? And I need your input on this. What are some wants that maybe you can make some adjustments in your life to be able to help cut that cost? Because we got to get it back to balance, or we're going to be in the hole a lot. Anybody tell me some things that maybe you can make some adjustments on?
Eating out. Eating out.
Oh, yeah. Have you noticed that eating out these days definitely has skyrocketed? You can't just go through McDonald's now for like $5 unless you get a Happy Meal. I mean, it's easily gone up quite a bit. And so that, if you don't take into account of it, and we're eating out often, we're college students, we're in a hurry. And so it's just convenient, but it's very pricey. Any others?
Entertainment.
Yeah, you were right about that. You have any gamers in the room or online? Sometimes, I know my son is in college, he's a sophomore, and I notice as I'm looking on his account, he spent $10, $20 on some kind of who knows, it's a new thing, Mom, I gotta have it, or, Overwatch, some skins, and something else, and I'm thinking, well, you know what, when your money's gone, and you don't have anything else to eat, then that might be a problem, you might wanna think about that. This was just an example. I don't know if we have any coffee drinkers in the room, but I know a lot of college students think that, I need coffee. And so, look at this example. Sorry, we're just calling him Joe. If he bought a cup of coffee every day at $5 a day, okay, that may be like a Starbucks, maybe not, but that's outrageous. $5 a day for one drink is outrageous. And you multiply it per week, $25, and then for the term, that's $500. You have nothing to show for if it's just coffee. Good idea or bad idea, folks? Not good. What's one way that we can reduce that? If you were in his shoes, or maybe you have a habit that's costly, what do you think, what would you recommend that they do? Anybody?
Yeah. Buy a coffee maker.
Buy a coffee maker. You're exactly right. Buy a coffee maker, buy the little frou-frou stuff at home. You can buy it, go online and get it at Amazon. Allow yourself maybe just once a week a special coffee instead of one every day. And maybe this isn't realistic for maybe college students every day, but some do. Even if you have a decline in balance. Well, your decline in balance going through, I don't know about you, but my son, he's a Chick-fil-A guy. So he wants to go to Chick-fil-A for lunch. Well, that's okay, but you can't do it every day, and you can't spend $15 at Chick-fil-A every day. So you definitely have to cut back. Buy a coffee maker, like you said. Just some of the other things that you might want to consider as we are looking at what can we do, and that's making some adjustments. And let's see what we've got. Like you said, make your own coffee at home. This is a huge one. How many of you have noticed how much it costs? I'm not talking about going out for a beer or drinking. I'm talking about just a basic soft drink at a restaurant. Is it $1 anymore? Let's just say,
No.
I want a Coke to go with my meal.
It's like
How much is it for just
$3.
a soft drink? How much?
It's like $3 to get
Yeah.
a tea. Yeah.
Yeah, $2 or $3, $2.50, $3. That blows my mind. So drink water and then go drink your soft drink at home, or make your tea when you get home. Sharing an entree, find free activities, eat out less, just on special occasions, maybe on the weekends. Coupons, I know, but maybe you can get them like they're talking about on your phone. So be wise. Be wise. It probably wouldn't hurt all of us to kind of cut back on our eating and our expenses when it comes to that. So be sure and make adjustments and see we can do that. Certainly we can do that. So here are some of the other things they've just kind of shown. We're just going to keep going because I don't want to take a ton of your time. But see, they've cut it down. So they're able now to be able to make the adjustments necessary. Not that they have to cut it out completely, but if you're budgeting for really high costs, then make some changes. And so keep it within reason, for sure. And now it's at 0. Good job. All right, we're getting close to the end. Thanks for hanging with me. And so this is creating your budget. So this is a good rule of thumb. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but look at the top. So it says everyone's budget will be different. Try the 50, 20, 30 rule, which is kind of neat. So if you can break it down for 50% for your living costs and your essentials, 20% for financial goals. Some of these may seem like, oh, okay, well, I'm in college. Well, I'm not planning on this retirement stuff right now. Well, emergency fund is one that's important, like we talked about. And then also 30% for your flexible spending. So if you've never really thought, well, how do I do this budget and how much do I allocate for certain things, maybe consider the 50, 20, 30 rule of thumb. Well, we can share this with you guys and you can go back and take a look at it and see. And here's just an actual budget. If you don't really know where to start, Sally may have some great resources for this. I'm sure there are plenty of apps and there are plenty of other things too that are out there if you don't have anything. But if you need us to supply some resources to Sally Mae, we certainly can do that for you. It's just an example of a little budget. And then helpful tips, and we're gonna be done. So, start small. You don't have to save and not have any fun in college. College is a great time, obviously, but it is pricey. But set aside just a little bit. Make sure you set aside money for the higher price things that you want. Start by setting up a bank account with a savings account and be able to put a little bit in it. Direct deposit or automatic deduction is a great way to be able to make sure that it is into that account so you don't see it. If you don't see it, it's a lot easier to not touch it because it never got into your hands. So that might be something you want to do. Just get some of it deducted out of your, if you have a job that you get, and just put it in there automatically without it even coming to your hands. You'll want to consider what amount is realistic for your savings, and you can rearrange it with, like I said, the contribution from your paycheck, and that's really helpful. If anybody has some advice or some ways that you do that, love to hear about it. Needs versus wants, that's the other big part. Maybe you are thinking, okay, well, I know we're getting close to Christmas. What are some things that I could ask for Christmas? Well, maybe it's spring break and you are wanting to take a trip for spring break. Well, okay, here's Christmas. How are you going to pay for a gift for your parents for Christmas or your niece or somebody that you just like, oh, I want to? Well, that credit card becomes just an option, but if you can't pay it off, don't put it on there. And so by having a little bit of savings, that can help you with that. Maybe you've not even thought about that yet, but Christmas is right around the corner. And then it's going to be spring, and if you want to take a little trip for spring break, how am I going to pay for that? Maybe you need to take up a little extra job. Start putting that just in savings. All of those things can add up. And then, I think maybe lastly, we're at this. Good credit is key when getting a car loan, if you need to buy a house or job. Your credit score, just in summary, being reminded of what we talked about, it goes into a 3-digit number. And we were talking about the average from last year, 716. That's a good one to work toward. If for some reason, guys, if you have already messed up some credit, it's not impossible to be able to work on that and build it up. So if you need help with that, if you have questions, let us know. We also mentioned 90% of the lenders use that score, that FICO score, to be able to determine what your interest rate will be. And paying your bills on time is very important. They take that into consideration. Pay it on time. Another part, number 2, right here in the middle, build credit by making your student loan payments on time too. And that may seem like a little far off for now, I'm not really sure. If you have any way to be able to pay maybe just the interest while you're in school, or your parents could help you out with that, that's really helpful. But if you ever get in a bind, I think one thing that's important as a good takeaway, whether it's your credit card, a student loan, or just any kind of thing that you owe, don't just run away from it and think, well, I'm just not going to worry about it. I can't pay it right now, I'm just not going to worry about it. Typically, if you work with your financial institution, talk to them. There may be a payment plan or there's some kind of way to be able to help you. It's not as though they just want you to crash and burn. They want to help you. They want to be able to get their money back, but they want to help you too. I know Sally Mae has a great department that helps our students who may be struggling in making their payments. And then finally, beware of credit card debt. Please be careful because it can just really, really become an addiction. It can be a problem and it can certainly hurt you instead of help you if you can't keep it under control. We talked about a budget too. And then just a few little notes. We talked about if you need to get a great example of a budget or any of those things, if you need, we can certainly get that sent over to you. I think just the worksheet. I think that's it. I appreciate your time. Anybody have a comment, a question?